Hello, favorite people. How y'all doing tonight? Bouger Prepper, and I saw Prepping by Faith, Auslander. Oh, by the way, Auslander, I love your video on the timeline for the end times. Fantastic video production. I was enthralled. Thank you very much for that. Hope everybody's doing well. Linda's Prepper Kitchen. Hi, how you doing? Bouger, we missed you. Saturday. Boy, we had a lot of people there. We were really tying up and getting people followed and following people, and had a really good time Friday night. So I just listed another one. We kind of agreed we're going to do it 2 nights a month, first and third Saturdays. You're not obligated to show up, but if you want to grow your channel and we have different people showing up at either one, then that's going to be to your advantage. Of course, tonight we're doing our nonfiction book club. Where did I put the book? And I put it underneath my printed out questions and answers. So we're doing SHTF, Survival Boot Camp by Selco Begovic and Toby Cowan, I think it is. But anyhow, fantastic book. There is every day on the side of the grass is a good day. Absolutely. There are some other books I'm going to recommend, and I'm going to have those. They're in the show notes, and so when this is all over, you can go there. I'm also going to recommend a couple fire starting things on Amazon, and one particular knife that I really like that's got a built-in ferrocerium rod and sharpener. So I think it's just one of the better knives if you want an inexpensive, good quality knife that'll last you for a long time. Then that's probably going to be the one you want to go with. Now, what I did was I spent the first 15 minutes typing in all the questions, and then found out I was typing them into comments instead of banners. So I gave up on that. You can't delete them once you put them in there, I found out, unless I want to ban myself from my own channel. So so they're up top if you want to cheat and go ahead. But let's go over to the first banner. And so do you have 3 ways to start a fire? Just give me an idea in comments what 3 ways you have to start a fire. Yes, absolutely. He is. He's the one who in the 1990s, and he came out with My Year in Hell, How I Survived 1 year in the Bosnian War. So my whole reason for choosing this book, Auslander, is because I prefer to hear from people who've been there, done that, than from people who theorize about what might be good. Aqua Run Girl, good evening to you too. So the 3 that I consider really good are going to be number 1, Selco Begovic, who we're doing here. Another one is Furfall Manuel Aguirre, who survived in Argentina. He has 2 outstanding books. And the third one is Venezuelan Prepper. And he only has 1 book out that I'm aware of. But those 3 all lived through what we're talking about here. And so I think a real life experience is what's really important. So tell me, what 3 ways do you have to start a fire? I went out in the garage. I have a personality fault. Sometimes I do things to excess. So I have 3 humongous totes full of fire starting stuff. So I have way too much fire starting stuff. I have way too many knives. I've got 9 fishing rods and reels. So there's other fishermen who will tell you I don't have enough, but in my opinion, I probably should get away with 3 or 4. But I like to keep different weights of line and different actions on the rod. So that's my fault. Is sometimes I do things to excess. Ferro rod, lighter, and rechargeable light. Fantastic. I like the rechargeable. And of course, you have to have a solar system or something to recharge it. Fantastic. Lighter, a Zippo, a Bic, matches, and a ferro rod. All right. Fantastic. So the first recommendations I want to make to you tonight is the Mora knife, Moraknive, Swedish knife. This is the Bushcraft Black, and what I like about this is the only Mora knife that I'm aware of, other than the fire starting knife, that has the 90-degree angle here on the back of the knife, and then it also has the blade. It has a built-in sharpener, and it has a ferrocerium rod right there in the carrier, and that's for about $60. You've got a full tang, fantastic survival knife that you can start with a ferrocerium rod. So that's method number one. Method number two is you can get these little magnesium blocks. Now, when you get a magnesium block, they give you this cheapo little thing here. I like to use my knife, use the back of your knife, scrape off some magnesium. Then you have your ferrocerium rod on this side, you scrape it. Now, there are two ways to use, hi Rapture Ready, hi Peaceful Monkey. There are two ways that you can do this, okay? Arkansas Wildman kind of put out a video challenge for people to start a fire using a ferrocerium rod. And I watched one channel where the guy had a hard time drawing it and everything. Let me get my knife out. There are two ways you can strike a ferrocerium rod. You can either hold your knife still and then pull, so hold your knife still and pull the ferrocerium rod back, which is my preferred way of doing it because you've got more direction control of the sparks, okay? Or you can hold the ferrocerium rod still and move your knife, strike your knife down. And some people like that because they feel that they're directing the flames, the sparks a different way. And hi, Peaceful Monkey. And so I prefer to hold the knife still and pull on the ferrocerium rod. Now, there's a problem with that. Some of these have fake handles, like this one here on the Mora. And so, let me get it out. Oh, come on. It's not going to, there you go. That's going to come out. You have these handles that are on it. And so when you pull too hard on the handle of the ferrocerium rod, you can pull it off. And then that's why some people prefer moving the knife rather than the rod, than the ferrocerium rod. So just my preference. Okay, some other things. You might want some tinder. This is fantastic. It's quick fire. So this will catch with any of those sparks, 50 packets to get you started. This company is no longer in business. I bought a case of these about 10, 12 years ago. And these are fat wood sticks. So I'm going to use this as a giveaway at some point, probably when I meet my next goal, 5,000 subscribers. So I might give this away. Then, of course, you've got your Bic Lighter. Now, keep these when they run out of fuel. Keep these because what you have is you have a striker here, and then embedded in it is a ferrocerium rod. So what you're doing is every time you move that wheel, you're throwing the same sparks as you would with a ferrocerium rod and a knife. So that's just fantastic. And then, of course, what you can also do is take the back of your knife and scrape the plastic off. And if you get this into shavings, that can become tinder for you. That can become, and it is flammable. So you can use that once you get it scraped off. My preferred lighter, and I have several of them, is this one. And this is from 1972. But I think the Bic Lighter came out in 73. So this is the Zippo lighter that's windproof. It has a refillable tank. And then, of course, because you have the refillable tank, you have lighter fluid, which you can also squirt on a fire to get it started. And then, let me see, what else? Oh, I guess the last thing or two is going to be you can get fire paste on Amazon. And this is just a tube of gelled flammable liquid that you can squirt on. It lights very easy with the ferrocerium rod. And then this one, this is a terrible way to cook. It doesn't produce the heat. It's terrible as far as boiling water. Use 2 tabs to boil water. But what is really great is the hexamine tabs that are inside. Throw it down, catch the spark with your ferrocerium rod, and you've got a great fire starter. That'll burn for about 8 to 10 minutes. And so if you can't start a fire with the hexamine tablet in there, you've got some real bad problems. Okay, let me see. Hi, Uncle Al. Oh, if you want to watch a Zippo lighter being lit, the last couple Uncle Al videos, he lights a Zippo almost every time. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree, Auslander. I am not impressed with the stove itself, but I am impressed with the hexamine tablets as far as fire starting, especially if you have wet fuel. Okay, let's see. The next question here. So there's three things. There's tinder, and then there's kindling, and then there's fuel. So tinder, they say, is going to be about the size, the best size is going to be about the size of a toothpick. And then the next one up from there is going to be your kindling, and that's going to be about the size of your pinky finger, no bigger than. And then you go to your fuel, which is going to be a regular log. Now, Selco also talks here about I think Toby talks about it. There are three different kinds of fire. No, he talks about two different kinds of fires. He talks about the teepee method, where you stand everything up in a teepee, and then you have your tinder down at the bottom, and you're kindling on top of that, and then your logs coming up. So you can start that up. So under the assumption that heat rises, it's going to catch those. Then he also talks about the star, which is where you have all the logs on the ground in the shape of a star, and they all come together in the center. That's where you're going to have your tinder and your kindling. You're going to start those logs on fire. Then, and this is the Indian way of doing it, and then as your fire dies, you move the logs in closer and closer, so that you have them all catching on fire at the same time. The one that I prefer is called the log cabin method, and you take your sticks and basically put two like this, and then two like this, and then two on top, and you're building almost like a pyramid with that. And so that's my favorite way of doing it. So that's on page 197. Let me see here. Okay, next one. What are some fire safety tips that he talks about on page 202? Yeah, Peaceful Monkey. I'm thinking about doing a basic video on sharp handling and how to avoid cutting yourself. Never build a fire too big to extinguish. Absolutely. Build a wall. Yep. So you have something to reflect it back towards you. Absolutely. Keep something by to put it out, right? Sand, water, fire extinguisher. Like I said, I'm kind of paranoid, and I do things to excess sometimes, and I have way too many fire extinguishers. I have a fire extinguisher in every room, and I have one right next to my bed on the nightstand. So yeah, another thing is take a look at what's going to be above it. We had a couple of fires from barbecues, from grilling outdoors, that people didn't want to be out in the sun, and they put it in their patio, and didn't pay attention to the fact that the flame was going to leap up and catch their ceiling on fire. Yep. Anything else? If you're using any kind of a liquid fire starter, do not pour it on the fire after you started the fire. That flame can come right back up that spout and into the can, and etc. Fantastic point, prepping by faith. Keep clothing, equipment, and personal items away so they can't catch fire. The number one cause of death back in the 17 and 1800s was they had the hearth inside the home, and then they had a bed where they could pull the coals out. And women, of course, wore long dresses and wore long aprons. And women's clothing catching on fire while cooking was the number one cause of death for women back in the 17 and 1800s. Okay. If fire goes into the ground, make sure you can feel heat from hot coals. Yes. I was talking to a friend yesterday. We had a neighbor, and their pickup truck caught on fire. People using fireworks, and firework landed in his bed and ignited the bed in his pickup on fire. So they had to call the fire department. And, that was quite something. And then the first year we lived in this area, the area in front of our house was all open woods, and kids with bottle rockets set off the cedars on fire. And cedar has an interior that you just difficult to put out. 20 fire companies came to put out that fire. And when you drive down that main road nowadays, you can still see some burnt wood on the side towards that big open area that caught on fire. Let me see here. Okay, he talks about testing yourself and seeing what would happen if you go 18 hours without food. So what do you think would happen? What does he say there on page 206? One of the things that I found kind of strange is, I don't know why, but every time I build a fire, the smoke comes towards me. It leaves everybody else alone, but it definitely comes towards me. I think I'm a smoke attractor. So what does he say about going without food? Lower performances, absolutely. Take care, prepper camper. Good luck. 18 hours, no problem. Yeah, as you get older, you find out you eat less. I only eat half as much as I used to, and sporadic in between. Yes. Yeah, you could go longer. Absolutely, Auslander. But he talks about some specific things there on page, let me see, what is that page? 206. Let me check here. He says that so you need 3,500 pounds, 3,500 calories per day if you're working. And so beef, and he talks about that. Let me see, that's not what I want. Oh, physiological shock. And so, his whole point here is that most of us have become accustomed to certain foods at certain times, and that in SHTF situations, you may not have the foods you normally eat in the consistency you like and the taste that you like, and that depreciating over time. He even talked about there were some insects that was in the rice that was cooked, and so what he'd do is he'd wait until nighttime when he couldn't see the insects in the rice, and then he'd eat it and pretend that it was something else. One of the things they did to us in survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training, SEER training back during the Vietnam War, was, it was simulated that we were POWs. And for 24 hours, we were put in a POW camp and kind of treated about the same way that you would be treated in an actual Vietnamese POW camp. But they fed us rice with peas, and they put green food coloring in the rice. And a lot of people wouldn't eat it. And it was just, all it was food coloring. But, there are people who get very, very picky in what they eat. And so going 18 hours without it, just to give yourself a test and see how you would do. What are some indications of plants that you should not eat? Really, Bouger? I have been a nitpicker, I guess. I don't know what you would call it, but I don't have heavy meals. I kind of pick through the day, and so I don't have what you might call big meal. I like to have little bitty stuff all the way through. So let me see. Number one, test it. And yellow or white berries, absolutely. Shiny leaves, fine hairs. What you want to do is you want to test it. So first you want to touch it to your skin, see if it does anything. Wait 5-10 minutes. Take a small bit. You can boil it. Never eat mushrooms unless you're an expert in identifying mushrooms. Suspect everything to be contaminated. As a matter of fact, I think he says 90% of the plants that are out there are not edible. So yeah, suspect everything to be contaminated. Don't eat it if it has stickers on it. Don't eat it if it has umbrella-shaped flowers. I don't think so. I think we kind of know that lettuce is fairly common. So he says milky or discolored sap, bitter or soapy taste. Anything that has mushrooms growing on them, avoid. Shiny leaves, fine hairs, spines, or thorns. Yellow or white berries, an almond scent, which is characteristic of cyanide compounds. Umbrella-shaped flowers we've covered, green heads with pink, purplish, or black spurs, and plants with 3 leaves. So if it leaflets 3, let it be. That's the poison ivy, poison oak. Yeah, exactly right. Okay. He talks about fishing. There's a lot of good stuff. And so I'm going to make one more recommendation. And these are hard to find, but this is my copy from a long time ago. As a matter of fact, the 27th of June, I got an email. I was going to look it up and show it to you, but it's congratulations on the 55th anniversary of becoming an Eagle Scout from Boy Scouts of America. But anyhow, this is, in my opinion, the best field guide, the best camping, hunting, fishing, trapping, everything. This is the 1948 edition of the Boy Scout Field Manual, the Scout Field Book. You can get these on eBay. This is the best book there is. It has all kinds of photographs of edible plants, of flowers, and everything that's fish identification, edible animals, and how to begin butchering them, and all that kinds of stuff. Just a fantastic book. So it's the Scout Field Book from 1948, if you want to write that down. That's my recommendation. That's one of the best books out there as far as in a survival situation. If hand fishing, what are some of the upstream? Yes, go upstream. He's talking about the dill and parsley foliage, if it looks like it, because you can't tell the difference between the two unless you have specific knowledge of those plants. Yes, take a local plants course, but also you can. They're usually at our grocery store. They have Central Texas edible plants. It's a little fold open guide that you can get, for $3 or $4, and it's very colorful, and it's laminated, so you can take it out in the field and everything else. And it's pretty good. So check your local grocery store; they might have that. At the checkout is one of those spurious purchases, or spontaneous purchases. There we go. Use a branch and tie a line for fishing. Yes. And he even talks about using wood to make because fish have a tendency to swallow. So when they do, if you're using a sharpened piece of wood, you can use that as a form of a hook. You're going to have to weight it because remember, wood floats. Start downstream and work upstream so that the sediment you stir up doesn't obstruct your view. And the other thing is that obstruction, that murky water is going to let the fish downstream know what you're doing. Hey, Texas Redleg, welcome. And okay, let me see here. Need to go down one more. What insects should you avoid eating on page 217? I just watched a video yesterday, and they were talking about there are now insect proteins that are being bagged and sold as food in Europe, and they figure that's going to happen to us here in the near future. But what are some insects that you should avoid eating? Yes, Peaceful Monkey. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The laminated edible plants guide. Don't eat brightly colored bugs. And he talks about three colors in specific. Yep, don't eat spiders. But the three colors he mentions, I believe, are orange, yellow, and red. Don't eat any of those three bugs. Yes, the yo-yo auto fishing reels are fantastic. Now, so Texas Redleg brings up a good subject, and that is, with all my rods and everything else, if you go to a bass fishing tournament, you're going to spend 8 hours on the water trying to catch 3 fish in a bass fishing tournament, and then whoever has the greatest weight wins. And I'm going to tell you, fishing is not something that with a rod and a reel and a pole, or rod and reel and bait, you're going to spend a whole bunch of time. In a survival situation, you aren't going to have time to sit on the bank and cast. And he talks about that in the book, and he says build fish traps or use some other thing. Use a cast net. I have a cast net that I purchased, and that's how I'm going to fish it. When it comes to SHTF. And what Texas Redleg is talking about here is there's a device called the yo-yo reel. And it's basically a spring activated reel, and you hang it on a tree branch and you pull the weight down, or you pull the line down, put your hook and weight and everything else on it and put it in the water. Then when a fish grabs the bait, what it does is it activates the spring retraction method on the yo-yo reel, and it just pulls the fish right up out of the water. And you don't have to be there while that's happening. So that's a fantastic point to bring up. Thank you very much. Yes, a gill net. Were we talking about to eat bugs? Prepping by Faith and Bouger Prepper. Yeah, I'm not. I've eaten some weird things in Asia, and I was the guest of honor at a dinner in Hong Kong, and they served me the eyes of the fish, which they always give to the guest of honor, and our entree was jellyfish tentacles, and they were like eating plastic. Hi, LG. Let me see here. Hang a line on a branch. Yeah. The only problem with a hand line on a branch is I think we're talking about using that as a pole and fishing that way. Yeah. Trotline is a fantastic idea, Texas Redleg. Absolutely. He doesn't talk about it in the book, but a trotline that's the way that I usually fish for catfish. And so what you're doing is you're taking across a stream or a river or whatever. So you've got a terminal point on one bank and a terminal point on the other bank, and then you're going to weight that line down into the water so it's getting close to the bottom. And then you have your hooks tied over, let's say, every 3 or 4 feet, and those are baited so that now you've got all of your, depending upon the width of the river or stream, you might have anywhere up to 8, 12 hooks on that one line, and you can just leave it underwater for a day and then come back the next day, and you might have 3 or 4 catfish on it. So very good idea, Texas Redleg. Trotline is a fantastic idea. Carp-like dough. And sourdough is fantastic for catfish, by the way. Just not far from here, they have in the San Gabriel River is one of the largest catfish that have been caught on the San Gabriel River, right? Not too far from the house. Yes, eels and crabs are easy to catch. They're good food, especially eels. But let me tell you something. We went to Bad Schwischen in northern Germany. We lived in Hoyersdorf, and so this little dwarf, the Germans have bands and choirs and everything else, and they go to other towns to perform. So we went up to Norderney, which is an island on the Baltic Sea north of Germany, and to present a presentation to them. And we stopped by the oldest continuously operated guest house in Germany, which was at Bad, which is Lake Schwischen, and they had their specialty was eel. So they brought you these eel, and they had the price tag was stuck through the gill and mouth, and you picked out the one you wanted. You brought it up, and when you pull the skin off the eel to begin eating it, because these were pickled eels, the grease and oils that come out is unbelievable. So they have what they call Löffelschnaps or spoon whiskey, and they bring this Löffelschnaps out, and you actually clean your hands and arms with whiskey to get all that oil off of you. Eels taste pretty good, but all the oil and everything else, that can be kind of something else to go. Ice fishing, not here, except February every 100th year. But yeah, you can ice fish. That's drilling a hole through the ice and then sticking something, a line down in there. But once again, we're talking about using a rod and a reel, and I don't think we're going to have that time luxury available to us in a SHTF situation. Yeah. And typically, they're going to stock with the smaller fish, the panfish, the primarily bluegill and rainbows, and then they're going and sunfish, and that's what the bass are going to eat. And so then so you've got different sizes of things that are going to be there. I prefer panfish as far as fishing for 2 or 3 little bluegills is going to be a meal, but you need a whole bunch of them if you've got a family. And so yeah, you can deplete the stock in that area if you're not careful. Thank you, Peaceful Monkey. Okay. What should you disguise and how should you disguise it? Another way to say that is camouflage when hunting, page 219. Absolutely. I think that's number one, to be honest with you, Aqua Run Girl. I'm more worried about scent than I am anything else. And one of the things that we learned, especially in Vietnam, was shaving, toothpaste, all the hygiene items that we had gave off a distinctive scent, and Charlie could smell us, for half a mile away. And we couldn't smell them because their body odor, not being as frequently cleaning or not using chemicals to enhance odors on their body, they blended in with the environment. You couldn't smell them. So number one, watch what you do before you go hunting so you don't have any artificial scents being given off by your body. Try to mask your own scent by covering it up with things. And if possible, determine, and I use the wet finger method, which way the wind is blowing, so you try to stay downwind from where your potential game is going to be. Let me see here. Rain gear. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, when I go bass fishing on a boat, about 50% of the time you have to be in rain gear on the boat, just because that's, it's so damp out on the lake. Yes, fishing in the rain is preferable because what it does is it stirs up the bottom and it drives everything up top. Break up your human outline, and that's called camouflaging. And so that he talks about 2 things you need to camouflage. Number one, your clothing. He recommends dark colors, gray, black, brown, or camouflage, And then he also says break up the outline and everything of your face, and you can use charcoal or shoe polish or anything like that to break up your outline. Now, the whole purpose of breaking up your outline, we'll talk about camouflaging the face. If you look at me right now, okay, you can see the sun's hitting here, and so I've got highlights up here that are showing off as being bright, okay, and the same thing under my eyes right here; those are bright. So what you want to do is you want to kind of darken those so that they blend in with everything else, and then bring out some of the things that aren't as bright, like your eyes, ears, underneath your chin, and that way you're kind of you've got a disguise where people aren't readily seeing exactly what it is they're looking at. Small game hunting, yes, and so let's take that to a different level. Small game hunting, he talks about specifically, and I'm going to recommend a book, and I'll put a link in the when we talk about it. And this is the book I'm going to recommend. Basic Butchering of Livestock and Game. And so this is going to give you how to field dress and how to butcher, especially small game like rabbits and squirrels and everything else. I don't think you're going to have too much success if you go out hunting for small game. Now, trapping small game, and that's where this book comes in. Well, both of these books, he gives you some great ideas of some deadfall traps and some snares and other things in this book. There's a whole bunch more in this book. And so, using traps, snares, etc., to trap your prey rather than going out hunting for them and shooting them, you're probably going to be a lot more successful that way. Thank you, Peaceful Monkey. Yeah, and so the first small, well, actually, when I was a kid, we used to hunt rabbits, but for the sole purpose of putting the rabbit to a stake, and then we would kind of stand back in the evening, and the coyotes would go to try to grab that rabbit and eat it. And we were getting $15 for a pair of ears from the local dairy guys. And this is back in '70 when $15 was a lot. As a private, I made $123.50 a month. So I could get 10 coyotes and make more money in 1970 than I could as a private full time in the Army. Yep, take a butcher course at your local college, or you can also talk to your local agricultural extension, and they will do the same thing. So, and Peaceful Monkey, absolutely. You can get the small game and the large game. I'm very lucky here in Texas. If you're a veteran, you get a free combi pass hunting license, hunting and fishing license. So I don't have to pay anything for all my hunting and fishing here in Texas because of being a veteran. Box traps is a deadfall trap, absolutely. No, it doesn't, LG. And I think I shared this last time. The first time I went deer hunting, I was probably 25 yards away from the deer when I started to pull the trigger, and I swear that thing looked and prayed, please don't pull that trigger. It looked me straight in the eyes. And I didn't pull the trigger the first time I went. So I had to get over that, and I had to overcome that. So yes, there are some things that as city people, we are going to have to overcome as far as how we interact with nature. But I think once you get into a survival situation, that's going to change a little bit. You'll be willing to do things like that. Any pond that doesn't go dry can have crawdads in it. Yes, and crawdads are fantastic. Just make sure we were told don't eat crawdads in a month that ends in ber, B-E-R. So I don't know if that's a valid thing or not, but that's what we were always told is don't eat crawdads during September, October, November, December. And getting used to blood and guts now before you have to do it. And so, yeah, that's very true, Tracy. And by the way, thank you for showing up. So one of the things that, if you're a little bit squeamish, one of the things I want to do is recommend that you get extra nitrile gloves. If you don't like having blood and guts on your hands and having to wash it off, get gloves and do that. Now, I'm going to make a couple more suggestions. And I found this out the hard way. The best skinning knife out there is this one, and it's called a Havalon, and I'm going to have it in the link down below if you want to get a copy. So this is basically a scalpel, a hunting scalpel, and so you don't sharpen this. The blade comes off, and you just replace the blade. So I've got a couple packages of replacement blades, but you do have to be very careful. It's very sharp. Best skinning knife out there. So that's down in the comments down below. The other one is, and I have a folding version, but you need a good gut knife. So he talks about how you're going to field dress your kill. And you basically start at the anus of the animal and then pull up. So what this does is you've got this guide here, so you're not getting into any of the internal organs. You're not going to spill those or anything else. It's going to guide the skin into the cutting area so you can get that open and get it out and get what you need from the animal. And then once that's done, you get all the innards out. Then you're going to use this to cut the skin off. And so that's where those two come in. So yeah, you do need some bushcraft skills, only because It depends on how long this is going to last. At some point, what you have in your hunker down position may run out, and you may have to go out and get and forage for either edible plants or for meat or fish. I don't understand the comment, Uncle Al. If you expound on that for me a little bit. Oh, I didn't think, I haven't thought of that, but good point. Absolutely a good point. Thank you, Prepping by Faith. Auslander, are you talking about the Havilon or are you talking about the gut knife? You are so right. And I'm going to say that if you try to use something like this to gut and skin a carcass, then you're going to be sharpening it probably. I'm going to say if you're doing a deer, you're probably going to sharpen it 10 to 20 times before you're done, because it gets dull very quick. Oh, okay. The gutting knife, yeah. And I like this one. Now I found the one I'm recommending on Amazon is actually a fixed blade version, but I like this one because it also has a knife, and what I really like is it's got a bone saw. So I've got all three in this one. I just can't find this one anywhere so that I can get that out to y'all. But mine, the one I carry, has all three: the knife, the bone saw, and then the gutting hook. Okay. Well, thank you, Duso Invictus. Welcome aboard. Kill It and Grill It, welcome aboard too. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, your blade, you're gonna want it honed very extremely sharp. And I prefer, you can get a package of 20 refill blades for this, and just change them out, throw them away when you're done, when they get dull. All right, let's see where we are on the banners. And so, yeah, so if you have a tab, I would say tab pages 231 and 232 in your SHTF book. That's the generic guidelines on how to field dress and butcher an animal. But for more specifics on each kind of animal, this is the Bible. Now, the first time I did a squirrel, I didn't realize that I had to break its paws and legs to get the skin off. And you can basically take the skin off a squirrel so easy, it's pitiful. And in my opinion, probably a squirrel is the easiest thing that you can hunt, that you're going to field dress and butcher. Now, the other thing is, this was when I was at NSA, and in Maryland, you can only hunt squirrel with shotguns. And so one of the bad things about eating squirrel after you've shot it with a shotgun is those little lead balls. If you don't get them all out of the carcass, then they get cooked and you can eat into those and they can chip a tooth. So, okay, so that's pretty much most of the content of of what he wanted to talk about. I do want to make one more recommendation. And so, and if you ever watch Uncle Al, and I've got this kit online that's going to be in the comments down below. But when you watch Uncle Al, half the time he's got one of these that he's going to flip open and he's going to light it for you, okay? In my opinion, this is far better than a Zippo. I'm sorry, far better than a Bic. This is the Zippo. And the reason is these, if you have a little bit of wind, this is going to go out very easily. This one is virtually waterproof and windproof. And so when you get the kit that I have linked in the show notes, you're going to get, let me find the flints. And so you're going to have, oh, there they are. You're going to get this little box of flints. So you got enough here. I'm going to say this is probably a 3-year supply of flints, and that was when I was smoking a pack a day. Then 1 can of lighter fluid usually lasted me about a full year when I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So those 3 things you can get in a kit for around $20 on online at Amazon. I think that's the best fire starting tool that you're going to have in your kit, and so that's what I would recommend. Okay, so that pretty much takes us through the wilderness survival agenda. And what are your thoughts about where we are so far in the book? Have you learned anything? What's something that just caught you and said, wow, that's fantastic, I didn't know that? Yeah. This is a plastic handle. So, but the other thing is, be careful when you're looking at, and I think that Auslander brings up a good thing. What you want to look for is you want to look for some sort of good serration on your knife. Most people don't think about it, but and I think it was Prepping by Faith, or maybe it was Bouger Prepper, was talking about the amount of blood and guts that you're going to have while you're cleaning, or field dressing, or butchering a carcass. Absolutely correct. And so what you have to realize is those blood and guts get slippery, and if you don't have a good handle, good purchase on your knife, it can slip and it can be a danger to use. So make sure you have one that has good scales on it, that good grip, and even when it's wet, you can maintain a good grip on it. So I think that's extremely important. Okay, Kelly, thanks for showing up. We really appreciate you. Roos and rabbits, are they going to Australia? Yeah. And I like the deadfall, the boxed deadfall for rabbits. As a matter of fact, the next hill over is called Rabbit Hill, because even with all the homes that they built on that, they still have all these rabbits out there. Go over to my daughter's, and there's usually 5 rabbits out in her yard. And also freeze proof. Yep. Bics don't light at 34 degrees. I did not know that. Thank you for that. Well, thank you, LJ. Let me see. So we've done a little bit early today, but is there anything anybody would like to discuss in more detail? I will tell you, Aqua Run Girl, when you catch bluegill, what you want to do is their dorsal fin has little spines in it. And so if you grab the fish and you get those spines on your hand, yes, they can cut you. So what I do is when I have it on the hook and I'm pulling the hook up, I start at the hook, at the jaw of the mouth, and then slide my hand down to grab a hold of the fish. So that way I've got that dorsal fin, their back fin, is stuck here in my hand, and my fingers are on its actual torso, its actual body. That way I'm holding those sharp dorsal fins down while I've got the fish, and I can take the hook out and put it in my catch bag. But yeah, there are a lot of fish. Catfish, they can get you pretty good. Now, there is a very common thing they call noodling, and this is usually done in 3 to 4 foot deep rivers. But you can actually feel the catfish down on the ground, and people will go down and they wear special gloves, but they'll stick their hand in the fish, reach out through the gill, and then pull the fish up out of the water. So that the fishes, they're actually using their hand as the form of hook and bait, and catching them that way. And that's called noodling. There's all kinds of videos you can watch about that. So I hope that answers your question. A different way to signal for help in jungle or snow. Well, the universal sign is white smoke. And so you get a lot of white smoke if you have wet foliage that you're burning. You also might want, if you want to be found, then when you go, make sure you have some fluorescent panels, so you can mark, and there's specific laying, how you lay those out to tell them what you need. So I would say, yeah, the white smoke is probably going to be the most common. That's why I always carry a lifeboat whistle with me as well. Yeah, the catfish will bite you, and that's why you wear that special glove when you're noodling. Well, you're quite welcome, Susan's Ramblings. And I thought you were taking a vacation. It's so nice to see you active. I thought you were going to be on vacation away from YouTube for a short while. Yes, Auslander, you are absolutely correct. He said that worrying about your life on a day-to-day basis and the life of the people around you, that was his number one thing. And I think the one thing that, if I can stress it, that Selco stresses is community. Get yourself a small community, family. His was entirely family. But get those people around you, because when you go for water, who's watching your stuff? When you go to fish, who's watching your stuff? So you've got to have a guard mount basically at your base while somebody's going out to get firewood or food or out to barter or whatever the case might be. And Selco stresses in his other book, and so does Farfel in Aguirre, Manuel Aguirre from Argentina, and so does Venezuela Prepper. They all three stress the fact that in a very short time, you'll have black markets that will emerge. The barter won't be, you need to go find somebody and they're going to magically have what you want and you have what they want. And it's just going to be a trade. It's going to be a quest to find people who have what you want and are willing to take what you have in order to trade for it. And so that's why these black markets or markets will basically appear. And he said that quite often people get robbed going to and coming from. And that's the biggest danger, is going to and coming from. Yes, Uncle Al, a signal mirror is fantastic during daytime. Absolutely. I typically don't wear gloves when I'm fishing. And the main reason is because the majority of my rods are bait casters, and that's the open-faced reel. And so what you want to do is when you're using it, I throw it side-armed, okay? And so when I throw it side-armed, if you don't feel the pressure real good on that bait casting reel, then you get what they call a bird's nest, because remember that reel is unwinding very fast. And so the minute that plug, your weight and your hook hit the water, that reel is still going and your hook is stopped. Okay. So now you got this big mess of unspooled fishing line all over the place. So I don't wear gloves when I'm fishing, simply because I want to have my thumb on that reel. So just before it hits the water, I can stop that action of the reel with my thumb and I can feel the tension on the line. And that way I don't end up with a bird's nest and can't reel anything in. So I don't wear gloves when I'm fishing. Susan, this is a fantastic book. I have been really impressed with it. One thing that I really like is this chapter we just finished, or we're finishing now, chapter 3, is called Wilderness Survival. But the nice thing about this wilderness survival, Toby Cowan is talking about the wilderness survival, and then right there with it, Selco Begovic is talking about how that applies in an urban or suburban environment. So you've got both how to do it in a wilderness and in an urban suburban right there side by side almost, or at least chapter after chapter. So it gives both so that you can use it to either run away or to hunker down. Thank you, Uncle Al. We shall see. Selco, Furfall, and Venezuelan Prepper all would say that they are valuable to have, that they will be good barter items. But I think the big problem we have as preppers is we come out with blanket statements, okay? And then when we make a blanket statement, what we forget is that there are several different scenarios, And within each scenario, there's a timeline. So one of the things that I think that we talked about in chapter 1, if you'll remember, is he says different things have different values at different times during the incident. So he was talking about specifically in chapter 1, where candles had a very high importance early on in the disaster because people weren't used to having no light at night. And then when they started running out of candles, people got used to it, and candles didn't have any value anymore because people just didn't need them. They were used to not having light when the sun went down. So different things have different values at different points in time in each disaster scenario. So I have silver and gold. I think that if we have a financial collapse, and that looks imminent, the stock market was down again today, that would be of value. But I don't do that at the expense of not getting other things. So I would prioritize other things. I think the number one, I'm going to say two things. Number one and number two things is that you need water and you need food. Once you've got those two things satisfied and a way to cook them and a way to prepare, remember the 3 C's as well. The rule of threes. You also want to have some sort of shelter and a way to stay warm. Once that's met, then you can start thinking about some of the other stuff like gold, silver, and everything else. But get the primary things taken care of first. Focus on food, water, and shelter and self-defense and things like that. Okay, how many pages are we reading? Next time we are reading. It's not even 60 pages. Let me see here. Chapter 4 is violence, and it goes, and then we'll get into first aid. So let me see. Okay, so it ends at 269. It starts at 239. We're only doing 30 pages for next month or next week, so it should be a lot quicker. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think here's my philosophy, and I'm not going to say it's the right thing. I'm not going to say it's the wrong thing. I'm just saying this is Lee. My opinion is, why would I get something? You see all these barter lists. Here are the top 100 things to barter in an SHTF environment. Okay, so I'm going to go out and buy 5 shovels because they say that's going to be important barter items. Well, what am I going to get for those shovels? So now I have to find somebody who needs a shovel, wants it, and is willing to pay for it. What I want. So number one, it's a chance encounter. Somebody needs a shovel. I need your food. Are the other people out there really prepping? Do they have the food available that I want in exchange for the shovel? Why not just go get the food now instead of the shovel and depend on a happenstance? So my personal opinion is focus on the things that you need. And if you have extra oatmeal, that becomes a very barterable item. I think that's what people are going to be looking for is food more than anything else, food and medicine. And that's what Furfall and Selco and Dennis Whelan Prepper all say is food, medicine are the two big things. Yes, I agree. What was it? They said 3 is 2, 2 is 1, and 1 is none. Although I get tired of trivial or what do they call them? Trite expressions. Absolutely. And I think that's going to give us the upper hand here. We are looking at what are some of the likely things that we're going to be required to do. And in the book that we read for the fiction book club last Thursday, there are some very violent scenes in there. And we had a discussion about, how do you handle, and that's going to be next week, we're going to be talking about violence, only 30 pages, but we're talking about violence and how permeable it is in society in an SHTF environment. And so, we need to be mentally prepped on how far are we willing to go to protect our food, our family, and our water. And, we will have an advantage by being mentally prepped for that. And I think that having these kind of discussions is part of that process of mentally preparing us. Yes, diversification is the key. Brilliant point, LG. I wish I had said that. You are absolutely correct. That only get stuff that you're willing to barter away that you would use if nobody else wants it. Yep. Yes, water purification, water filtration, etc. Now remember that most of the water filtration systems out there don't remove viruses. So you're still going to have to boil it. Even the Great Berkey filter does not get rid of viruses. So that's the one thing that it doesn't get rid of. It gets rid of everything else, the dense metals, heavy metals, and some of the bacteria and stuff like that. But viruses sometimes can get through depending upon the size of the micron size of the filter you're using. Most ceramic filters can catch about half of it, but there's still going to be a little bit left. So be aware of that and be prepared for that. That's you ask, I think, the tantamount question. I've been doing this for 60 years and I'm not prepared. The example I always give is last year. Here I am, this prepper who's been doing this for so long. I had a 5 kW gas generator. I had 10 gallons of extra gas. I had a 5 kW solar generator. And all of a sudden, we have Snowmageddon here in Central Texas. We have an ice storm that shut everything down. Well, the house solar system couldn't work because it was overcast. There was no sun beating down on it, which meant that my solar system in the backyard also didn't work. Then the solar panels up top had 3 inches of snow on them, so the sun couldn't get through. We had to melt that off first before the sun could get through to it. But then I said, well, I'll just crank up my 5 kW generator. So I go outside, get it all cranked up, it's all oiled up and everything else. And I look at the extension cord and I say, holy crap, I have to open my back door at 7 degrees outside and get this extension cord through an open door into the house in order to run a heater. So am I letting more cold air in through that open door than what the heater is heating? So is it really worth it? So I found out that with all what I anticipated was brilliance, wasn't, that I was actually kind of improperly prepared. I didn't have everything thought out as well as I thought I did. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Nobody is ever fully prepared. I am more afraid, LG, of the unprepared than I am of the wolves, to be totally honest with you. I think I gave the example in one of our other lives. When I had my disaster response company, my first assignment was I fed the actual people who had survived the disaster. And I had to put a guard on my trailer because they were stealing stuff left and right, food, cooking utensils. I mean, it would just disappear. Then after that, I started where I was only serving CAT adjusters in a more stable environment. So yes, I'm afraid of those people who are unprepared as well. And they will be very desperate. Yes, the EpiPen does get rid of viruses. Hello, Ms. Penn. Welcome. Absolutely. And learning, and asking questions and participating in groups like this. As long as I've been doing this, I learn from y'all all the time. Uncle Al teaches me stuff, and then Prepping by Faith teaches me stuff. I mean, y'all do a fantastic job of keeping me humble and teaching me new things and new ways of looking at things. Because, if we put our blinders on and we only have one scenario and we only have one time point in that scenario, then all the other probabilities go out the window and we aren't ready for those. So I just thought. You've recommended that, and I'm going to do that. Yes, you did recommend that in one of your videos, as a matter of fact, here just the last 2 days or so. Yes, and there's going to be a time of adjustment. And so when it hits, those of us who can kind of preempt and say, this is what I think is going on and take advantage of that, we probably have a 24 to 48 hour head start on getting things taken care of that we need to last minute before Berserk hits. Hi, Shelley. Well, and Susan, let me share one other thing with you. And Prepping by Faith and I have had this discussion, and so has Texas Red Leg. But I'm a very firm believer in the second chapter of James, verses 14 through 24. And it says, "O vain man, dost thou not know that faith without works is dead, being alone? What doth it profit, my brother? If a man come to you naked, destitute, and need of food and clothing, and notwithstanding you give him those things which are needed. Show me your faith by your words, and I will show you my faith by my works. O vain man, dost thou not know that faith without works is dead, being alone?" So what that means to me is I have an obligation. If people come to my door and they're hungry and destitute, I have an obligation as a Christian to feed them. And that's my religious belief. I'm not imposing that on anybody else, but that's my personal belief. So not only do I have my daughter and my son-in-law and my 3 grandchildren, but I also have my neighbors I have to be concerned with. The best thing you can do, when I was in the Army, we had a first sergeant, and he had a 5-gallon pot that he put over a potbelly stove, and he'd put in about 2 or 3 gallons of water. And then we get our C rations. At this time, they were in the cans, and pour them in there. And we had this stone soup, is what we called it. And so I imagine doing that same thing for our neighborhood. And I'm using Bear Creek soup starters or soups as the basis for that. And so I've got a little thing I wrote up for the neighborhood and says, if you bring water or charcoal or something to help, you can get some food out, and then other things we want for each one of the meals. So you can have, simple things like chicken noodle soup, and that helps your neighbors, and oatmeal and things like that. So they're fairly inexpensive, and you can go a long way with those. So yeah, we need to prepare for other people as well, as much as we can. And, and people can work. In the book we did for our fiction book club, he created a system of credits where he says, a man with a family, wife, and 2 children, you want to feed those 4 people 3 meals a day. You also want to give them shelter. So he worked out a credit system where if one person works for 8 hours, that pays for the 12 meals and the one night shelter, which is basically about 14 credits. And so coming up with concepts like that we had in the book club Thursday night, I think is going to be outstanding. Yes, he does. Absolutely correct. Depend on your wits more so than your, duct tape, probably, but I don't know. I would say it's a valuable commodity. It's going to be valuable for me because I want to close off all my windows, and I want to put something that's opaque so that if I do have electricity from my battery here in the house, other people don't know about it. Thank you, LG. A grain grinder is fantastic if you're getting the wheat berries. Now, I've been buying, we have an LDS prepper store here in the next town. And so I've been going there now for, 14, 20 years, and picking up once a month a mixed case. And so I probably have, let me check just 1 second here. Let me go into this and go to bakery. Miscellaneous, where's bakery? Miscellaneous? Yeah, okay. I have 54 number 10 cans of flour. So, I wouldn't have any need for a grain grinder because I've done everything in 30-year shelf life flour. And that's fine, Pat. That's why you want to have a collection of people. Like I said, I get squeamish, and I don't like shooting animals. I don't mind killing a fish and gutting it and scaling it or whatever needs to be done and skinning it and everything else. But, shooting Bambi really got me. It really got me. I have no problem shooting a squirrel. I have no problem deadfalling a rabbit, but shooting a deer does get me. True. And so that's why if you watch my other videos, I always talk about try to get things in the smallest possible increment. And that's one thing I love about nutrient survival foods is they come in, I don't have any here with me. They come in little bitty packets. And so what I tell people is, let's say I'm going to give away my oatmeal. So I have this big tub that I bought of instant oatmeal. I'm going to pour most of that out into a Ziploc bag. I don't want to give the Ziploc bag away. What I want to do is I want to give away that bottom portion in the original container so that it appears that that's the last I have. And that way it discourages people because they don't think I have anything left after that. So that's how I plan on handling what you're talking about, Aslander. Well, welcome, Pat. Yes, it does. You know, I have never cooked a boar. Now, I will tell you that we have javelinas here in Texas and feral hogs, and you don't even have to have a license to shoot them because or to hunt them because they're so prevalent. We want to get rid of them. So now I did go on a boar hunt in Germany, and I tell you what, that was quite an experience. I thought the boar was going to kill me instead of me killing it. Yep. Skills first and then things. Absolutely, Susan. Absolutely. Okay, well, it looks like we're at 11 minutes after 9. Gosh, that went by fast for me. I don't know, did it go by fast for you? But anyhow, we're going to do chapter 4 next week of Selco's book. And once again, in the notes, there is a list for this book. So if you want to buy it off of Amazon, that's great. You can get it there. We're going to do chapter 4. There's only 6 chapters, so we're going to do chapter 4, chapter 5, maybe go through fairly quickly, and then chapter 6. We got 3 more chapters left in this book, and then we'll be done with it, or 3 more Tuesdays. And then if you want to join us for the fiction, and I think we get almost as much out of the fiction as we do out of the nonfiction. This is book 3 that I'm currently reading, but we're actually going to be reading book 2, which is the revival of the Stonemont series right here. And the author is Stephen C. Smith. So he unfortunately was on the road and not able to join us for Thursday night, but he plans to be with us next time. Absolutely. We'd be surprised what we're forced to do. And you'd be surprised at some of the things I've eaten when I was hungry. Okay. Thanks, Uncle Al. And with that, I think we're getting close for my, you think the number of times I've read this that I would have it memorized, but anyhow, the Levitical blessing from Aaron. So anyhow, this is Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 through 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So I thank you all so much for showing up tonight. I really hope that this was worthwhile for you, that you got something out of it, and that you can recommend it to other people. And we'll continue on next week with chapter 4, First Aid. And that's only about 30 pages. No, I'm sorry, it's violence. Chapter 4 is violence, and it's only about 30 pages. So we'll do this next week, and we'll mostly be talking about violence in the community, violence after SHTF. So let's see what we got here as final thoughts. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for coming and participating. I appreciate it so much. And we learned from you. As you saw, there was a lot of great suggestions from other people. Okay, so with that, thank you, Susan, and enjoy your vacation away from YouTube and your sanity. I came out with a recommendation on that here a while ago. We can get burnt out very easily, and then we also have these goals that we set up, and sometimes we don't meet those goals, and sometimes we get diverted and say, what if, and then we get diverted, and then sometimes we get obsessive like I am. I must have 30 different knives, and out of the 30, 24 of them have never been used, and I get obsessive about collecting things, and then I find a favorite and I go with it, whatever. But sometimes we just need to walk away for a short while. And I had an invitation to go to another live this last week, but I did 5 lives last week, and I thought, that's enough. So I had to step back too. So thank you all so much for being here. Really appreciate you. Have a great evening. Take care.